Okay. Good afternoon. I want to thank you all for coming to this rally today in support of my case, and more importantly in support of all our fellow San Franciscans currently undergoing Ellis Act evictions here in the Castro and in every neighborhood of our city. I would also like to thank Eviction Free San Francisco for sponsoring this event and the Harvey Milk LGBT Democratic Club for co-sponsoring, as well as all those organizations and individuals who have endorsed it.
We want to hear you.
Okay.
Speak right into it.
Let's get it up a little bit. I'm a little taller than she is.
Just a bit.
Okay. Better? Okay. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. Should I start over? Okay. As many of you know, I came to San Francisco almost 40 years ago and have lived in the Castro ever since. I've lived in my current rent-controlled apartment for 18 and a half years. 12 years ago, within days of 9/11, I was diagnosed with full-blown AIDS, having contracted pneumocystis pneumonia and having a T-cell count of just 35. Since then, I've been mostly housebound, doing my best to recover some semblance of normal health while dealing with major side effects like chronic fatigue and painful neuropathy. It's been a struggle, but with the help of great doctors here in San Francisco, I've improved and overcome many unforeseen obstacles along the way. In March of 2012, when I was just ending a 30-day hospital stay, I became aware that my building had been sold to 3 real estate speculators, John H. Dew, William H. Young, and Ku Mai, who then formed an LLC called 460 Noe Group LLC. Since then, these owners have done everything they could to get me to vacate my apartment, including threatening me several times with an Ellis Act eviction if I did not accept their low buyout offer. On September 10, 2012, I did receive an Ellis Act eviction notice. As a disabled senior, I was given until this past September 10th to vacate. But as you can see, I am still here. A little over a week ago, I was served a summons for an unlawful detainer eviction at my home. So I'm now at the beginning of my legal fight to stay in my rent-controlled apartment. While I think I have a decent case to present to the court, I'm under no delusions. I'm fully aware that most of the cases challenging an Ellis Act eviction have lost in court, most but not all. So I continue to remain hopeful, and I will continue to fight my eviction in every way I can. However, if I do eventually lose my fight, I will not only be forced to leave my home, but also the city I love, because on my fixed income, I will not be able to afford the sky-high rents. I will be forced to leave my friends and my great doctors behind. I started my website, ellishurtseniors.org, more than a year ago to tell my story and to bring to light the Ellis eviction crisis that has been building and building in the city over the past several years due to out-of-control and unfettered real estate speculation. These Ellis evictions do not spare anyone, long-time residents, seniors, or the disabled. In fact, some real estate speculators actually seek to buy rent-controlled properties with vulnerable senior and disabled tenants because they are the easiest to scare or bully into accepting low buyouts to vacate, or because they do not have the resources or ability to withstand the stresses of a legal fight. I've been lucky in finding a great advisor, housing rights activist and friend Tommy Abicoli Mecca with the Housing Units Committee of San Francisco. And he has helped me time and again over the past 2 years, and he also referred me to a great lawyer, Steve Collier with the Tenderloin Housing Clinic over a year ago. And since July of this year, I've been very fortunate working with so many smart and dedicated housing and tenants' rights activists and volunteers who are members of the Direct Action Group and sponsor of today's rally, Eviction Free San Francisco. While I may have inadvertently become the public face of San Francisco's eviction crisis here in the Castro, this has become about so much more than just my situation. It's about all those San Franciscans who have already gone through the Ellis eviction process, and those currently going through it, and about those who will be going through it in the future if something isn't done about it now. One case in point, the other day I received an email through my website address from a man named Andrew Evans Jr. with the subject line, "It's not just those in homes that are affected." He started by saying, "I can understand what you're going through. Then he explained that he was disabled, 58, and has been homeless for 10 years. He gets $940 a month, has spinal stenosis, and just had open heart surgery and still has another heart valve to replace. He said, I do not use street drugs of any kind and do not drink. I do not panhandle or run a sign. I had an apartment in San Francisco which was on rent control, no lease. Just a trusting landlady who was raised during the Great Depression, who herself in her late 80s climbed a ladder to screw in a 40-watt light bulb. The end was when she died, and I was forced to move out. Now, anyone who thinks that all the real estate speculation in the city hasn't contributed to our homeless situation must be wearing blinders. I'm sure there are many more Andrews out there among the homeless with similar stories to tell. And quite frankly, we should show a little more compassion for the homeless than we do, because this reminds me of the saying, there but for the grace of God go I. We need to spread the message to those in charge that it's time to stop paying so much attention to the moneyed interest in this city and more to the genuine concerns of its people. We need more affordable housing, and not just public housing, but more affordable housing throughout the city. We need strong laws to rein in the out-of-control real estate speculation that is driving up rents and evicting more and more people by using and abusing the Ellis Act. While we may not yet be able to repeal the Ellis Act, or Costa-Hawkins for that matter, that doesn't mean we should stop trying. In the meantime, we should do our best to minimize its effect on our residents, especially those living under rent control. For instance, while the Ellis Act does allow building owners the right to go out of the rental business and evict all the tenants, it does not give them exclusive rights as to what they can actually do with their property, especially when it comes to building permits for merging or demolishing rental units. Our city's planning commission has the ability to grant or deny these permits based on the best interest of the neighborhood and its residents. Because of this, new planning commission regulations could be legislated as to how building permits are approved or not approved when an Ellis Act eviction, an owner move-in, a merger or demolition, or the loss of more of our limited stock of rent-controlled housing units is involved. I know Supervisor John Avalos has been working on updating the Planning Commission regulations since January. Please let him and our other supervisors know to keep our concerns in mind as these changes are considered by the full board. A while ago, I came across a comment in response to a Bay Guardian article on all the San Francisco Ellis evictions that I would like to share with you now. Quote, there's a lot that's wonderful about this city. It's why I came to live here. But right now, there's a lot of anxiety. Anyone renting, whether under rent control or not, is in danger of being displaced. So are a lot of homeowners, frankly. And there's anxiety precisely because San Francisco isn't just another place. To many of us who came here, we're not here because we just happened to be transferred here for work, or because Grandpa died and left us property and San Francisco is just where it happened to be located. No, we came here purposefully because this is the one place in America where we feel at home. So it's not like going somewhere else is such an easy option, end quote. I also live here because it is the one place in America where as a gay man, I feel at home. And so it's not like going somewhere else is such an easy option for me either, as I doubt it would be for most of you. Right now, in San Francisco, we are allowing the haves to take advantage of the have-nots just because they can. Real estate speculators are taking advantage of long-term tenants under rent control and evicting them, seniors and the disabled included, with only one concern: profit. Banks and realtors are taking advantage of many of those wanting home ownership by heavily promoting the buying of TICs while playing down the many disadvantages of shared ownership and the outrageous mortgage payments for the same reason: profit. Just the fact that we have any rent control in San Francisco, no matter how watered down it is now, shows that due to its limited available real estate, scarcity of housing has been with us for a very long time, and rent control was the city's government's response to the haves taking advantage of the have-nots. So now it's once again time for more government intervention and a more coherent housing policy with new sensible laws aimed at curbing the increasing real estate speculation and Ellis evictions. It's that or becoming a city of just the haves. But you know, at some point, Many of the haves of today may well become the don't have enoughs or the have-nots of tomorrow, and they will be forced to leave the city too. Finally, I would like to let you know just what the owners of this building are planning to do with it. They are planning to merge the 3 rental units into a luxury single-family dwelling and then sell the property for a huge profit, which would mean the loss of 3 more rent-controlled housing units in the Castro. However, the merger of 3 or more rental units does require a public hearing before the city's planning commission. If we don't want the loss of more rent-controlled housing units here, then we must express our opposition to the owner's plans. To this end, I would ask you to please sign and encourage other San Franciscans to sign the Change.org petition sponsored by Eviction Free San Francisco on my behalf. You can do that down here at the table or take a flyer and sign up at home. Beyond that, please do whatever you can to get involved in this fight to help stop the unjust Ellis evictions and displacements occurring all over our city, of our longtime residents, our seniors, and our disabled, and the resulting loss of our limited stock of rent-controlled housing. Contact the mayor, contact your supervisor, contact state representatives. Join Eviction Free San Francisco and help us directly confront these landlords who put profit before people. Join, volunteer, and or support the many other housing and renters' rights organizations fighting the good fight, like San Francisco's tenant union. Even though our ranks have been shrinking over the years, we are still mostly a city of renters. So let's show our strength and commitment to ourselves and our neighbors at the ballot box. And let's fight for the soul of our great city so that once again, as stated in the lyrics from the old song San Francisco, we can truly be the heart of all the Golden West. Thank you for listening. Yeah, I think so. There we go.
There we go. It's almost my height. Maybe it is my height. Hi, everyone. And I'm here today to show complete and total support for Jeremy and for everyone else who is being threatened with Ellis Act eviction. The Ellis Act, it's really just over the top. And the fact that even common sense reforms in Sacramento, like what Mark Leno tried to do, to say you have to at least own the building for 5 years, even that hits a brick wall in Sacramento. And I really want to thank Senator Leno and Assemblyman Amiano and others for continuing to fight to really get this under control. But there are things we can do locally. We have to continue to support rent control and other policies to stabilize people at their homes, whether they're renters, whether they're owners, because the most important thing we can do to preserve affordable housing is to keep people in their homes. We need to push it up right to the line in terms of what we can do locally under our rent control ordinance, so it won't get struck down by the courts under the Ellis Act. We've done that over the years in terms of restricting condo conversions for homes that have been Ellis Acted, which I supported, and I know everyone here supported. We have to keep moving in that direction to drain the swamp and to really get rid of the incentives to Ellis Act people out of their homes. We also have to continue to aggressively invest in affordable housing because until we are able to change the laws, particularly in Sacramento, we have to make sure that people who are evicted from their homes have another place to go in the neighborhood, not somewhere else, and we have to keep aggressively investing in affordable housing. We have to do things like have more in-law units in this city and more affordable options for people so that we can keep people stable, hopefully in their own homes, and if that's impossible, then at least in their neighborhoods. And so you have my pledge that we will I will work with you, with my colleagues, to move in that direction, and it's really, this is just so critical for the future of our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. By the way, I also see John Avalos from the Board of Supervisors in the audience. So, John, I don't know if you want to come up here and say a few words, too. So let me say something here, and I want to thank my colleagues for being here. I think that we have to be very frank about what's happening, and I think that what Jeremy said is very much what's going on here. We are fighting for the soul of San Francisco. We are fighting for the heart of San Francisco. And the key question is here, what kind of city is San Francisco? Is San Francisco the kind of city that only works for multimillionaires? Or is it the kind of city that allows working people, middle-class people, low-income people to stay? And what's happening out there is something that goes against what San Francisco has been, a beacon of hope for so many communities. And I'll tell you that as a queer man of color, what I see happening out there, I see it as a civil rights issue. It's an LGBT rights issue because queer people are being displaced every day in San Francisco. There are people of color. There are middle-class people. I have been to so many events in Chinatown, in the Polk Street area, in the Mission. I mean, in the Castro now, every neighborhood is being impacted. And I'll tell you that as a member of the Board of Supervisors, I will tell you the Board of Supervisors has been part of the problem. We have been part of the problem because we have time and time again approved market rate housing, building units that cost $5 million, knowing quite well that none of the people that I represent, maybe with the exception of a couple of them, are going to be able to buy them. And yet we are not building affordable housing. We are basically giving carte blanche to the developers saying, you know what, just build it in San Francisco. We'll approve it. We have to change the course that has been taken by this Board of Supervisors and by folks in City Hall. And I will tell you this, that I have asked the budget and legislative analysts to do a very comprehensive report that's going to happen. It's going to come out in the next few days because I want to see the displacement that's happening neighborhood by neighborhood. And what it's going to show is that people who came to San Francisco are moving out. And we have, and I'm glad, by the way, Jeremy, that you made the connection between displacement when it comes to Ellis Act evictions and homelessness. Homelessness is a big issue, and it's only getting worse. 29% of homeless people in San Francisco are queer. And they are sleeping on the streets. They're sleeping in the parks. And what are we doing to help them? What are we doing to actually give them housing? I held a hearing a couple years ago. I held a hearing a couple of years ago where we had queer people saying we'd rather sleep in the streets, we'd rather sleep in the parks because we're not safe in the shelters. We're actually, I'm proud that we're opening the first LGBT homeless shelter in a little bit, but that's only 24 beds. What about the thousands and thousands of queer people who are sleeping in these parks, who are sleeping in these streets? So we have to take this city back, and it's going to take continuing to do this and to hold people accountable. But I will tell you, there is something happening out there. There is something happening out there because I think that low-income people, working people, middle-class people, heck, even upper-middle-class people are seeing that this is getting out of hand. This is our city. We need to take it back. Thank you.
On city government, on the state government to do something. I was happy to, and actually really inspired last week to take part in the march against displacement in the Mission District on 24th Street. Last week, the community, the Latino community, longtime residents, indigenous people of the Mission District were calling for the Board of Supervisors to declare a state of emergency. We need to declare a state of emergency. There was a report about 2 weeks ago that came out that said that poverty is increasing in California, that we have a poverty rate about 16% in the state of California. In San Francisco, our poverty rate is 23%. 23% of San Franciscans are below the poverty line. And yet our city has this false notion that if we just genuflect before the mighty dollar, before the biggest businesses, that all that wealth that they're making and keeping in their hands, some of it's going to trickle down and come to our neighborhoods.
It didn't work for Ray.
Are we seeing that happen?
No.
We are not seeing that happen. We have this old notion that if we just deregulate our economy, that the wealthiest will get richer and that some of that wealth will come down to us. It's not working, folks. We need to talk about a new economy, one that's about putting people first before profits, one that's sustainable, one that's about building houses, building local jobs, taking our local precious dollars and recycling them back into our neighborhoods. It's the only way we can survive, not just in San Francisco, but really, folks, as a human race. We have climate change that's on us, it's real, and if we don't think about how we make cities work for people in general, we're going to be losing that battle. And so it's going to take actions like this, and so I just want to say thank you for being here, and thank you for taking part in this fight. This has actually been going on now. We were along the Polk Street corridor a few weeks ago to support a family that was being evicted, a Chinese family being evicted. We were in the Mission District last week. There have been other standoffs protecting people to protect their homes in the Excelsior, here in the Castro. That's what's going to take to turn this around, and you have my full support to be coming out to as many of these events as I can. I'm willing to get arrested for it, and I'm willing to talk about, and I'm willing to come out too. Yeah, that's right. Just want to say thank you, Jeremy, for your, I'm not sure if you have a choice, but despite not having a choice, your courage here is something for all of us to emulate and all of us to stand up to. Thank you for you and all the other folks who are fighting against Ellis Act evictions. There's very little we can do at the local level legislatively, but if we put pressure here on our local officials, including the mayor, we can make a difference. Thank you.
And it's great to see so many people out here again, because as a number of people have referenced, the way we're going to stop evictions is with people power. And we need to begin standing up to each and one of these evictions. And when the sheriff comes, I'm going to be arrested. Who else is going to be arrested to stop this eviction? And we have to keep doing this all over the city. At all of these rallies, we have to remember that this is not an isolated case. This is not just happening to Jeremy. This is happening all over the city. We're in an epidemic of evictions. It's a crisis. We've seen Ellis evictions more than double in the past 6 months, and they're on the trend to triple from last year. So it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And as Supervisor Campos noted, this is a crisis. This is an emergency. And besides standing up to each and one of these evictions, we need to do legislative work as well. What we need right now is a freeze on all evictions for the next year. No evictions at all. While we cool off and figure out some permanent solutions. And we need to do the same with rents. Freeze the rents right now because the rents are too damn high. And that's the sort of stuff we do in an emergency. And we haven't been doing enough, so we're going to take to the streets, and we got to take to City Hall, and we got to fight to stop these evictions and end the real estate speculation and to build affordable housing and not more homes for the wealthy. So stand with us all year until we get our eviction moratorium, until we get our rent freeze, and until we stop all evictions. Thank you.
What is going on in this city? It didn't just start. This has been going on since the late 90s. Let's be real. How many people remember the late 90s when all of our friends were being evicted? How many people remember all the people with AIDS who got evicted from the Castro during the late 90s? How many people remember the guy who was in the final stages of AIDS on a respirator and the landlord served him with an eviction notice because he could not wait for him to die to evict him? How many people remember that? That's the kind of shameful shit that has been going on for almost 20 years in this city. And what has City Hall done about it? What? Nothing! More than nothing. They've been complicitors by their silence and their inaction. It is absolutely immoral and unacceptable that our politicians have done nothing while our neighborhoods were decimated, while our friends were thrown out, while people died on the streets in this city. You know, it's really great that Supervisor Wiener came here today, but the reality is there's been a crisis in this neighborhood for years. When he took office, there was a crisis. Not long after he took office, a gay man died on the streets between 18th and 19th Street on Castro. He died homeless. And what was the response from Wiener's office? Nothing. In fact, what was the response from the mainstream LGBT community? Nothing. It is shameful, folks. We have to not only hold them accountable, we have to shame the crap out of them. These folks are guilty of the heinous crime of allowing us to be evicted, of allowing people to be homeless and to die in our streets. That's what they're guilty of. And I'm not going to mince words about it anymore, because I'm sick and tired. We sent a message a couple weeks ago at the Lee family house. We got the mayor of this city to finally do something about evictions, and for him to call a landlord and to ask for a delay in that eviction. We did that! Us! Let's give ourselves a round of applause. It wasn't the politicians. It wasn't the mayor. It wasn't the democratic process. It was we, the people, saying enough.